Okay, this is my favorite picture I think we've ever put together at the Underrated. It shows three guys who are going to make $150 million next season. And then the fourth guy, of course, is the person that's actually going to pay for all of that. We're going to get straight to the point today on the Underrated. And we are going to talk about how the Suns have actually done it. They've built the worst super team ever. Now, look, if you're going to be a super team, there are a couple rules you actually have to live by. And I'm going to give you that first rule: Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and of course, Devin Booker. And that first rule is, quite frankly, a super simple rule, a rule that should never, ever be broken again by a team that claims to actually be a super team. And that rule is, don't get swept in the first round of the playoffs by a team you easily beat 3 times in the regular season. Okay, so you might be wondering, who's to blame for all of this mess? Is it the new owner? Is it the general manager, James Jones, who has been with the Phoenix Suns in that capacity? He's been with the Suns since 2017. But he's actually been the general manager of the team since 2019, and certainly did a good job in the first couple years he was actually with the Phoenix Suns in that particular role. Now, James Jones played in the NBA for a long period of time. He knows basketball. I am not in any way saying that James Jones doesn't know how to evaluate talent. I mean, when you actually look at what he had to deal with because of and I'm going to say this, and I mean this kindly, the dumb moves that he made to actually go out and bring in Kevin Durant, Mr. Passive Aggressive himself. I made a joke on a different podcast yesterday about the same topic. I basically said, hey, the NBA is actually going to pull out a new award next year. Look, they have 13 awards that they give out every year. The 14th award would be the most passive-aggressive player in the NBA, and clearly Kevin Durant would be the inaugural winner of that award. Kevin Durant, who did not actually publicly come out and say he was having trouble with the head coach, Frank Vogel, was indeed having trouble with the head coach, Frank Vogel. And instead of actually voicing it directly with Frank Vogel, he went into a different direction altogether. This is, of course, the standard operating procedure. If you will, this is Kevin Durant's OS. I'm not saying Kevin Durant's a bad guy. In fact, he's actually a really good guy. I love all the things that KD does on the court as well as off the court. But the fact is, while he's a basketball player, he is certainly very passive-aggressive because he doesn't actually take that leadership stance to actually stand up for what he actually truly believes in, and then things sort of mull and run into trouble with other players on the team, and before you know it, half of the team hates Frank Vogel, and Frank Vogel, the head coach of the Phoenix Suns, actually knows this. So who's to blame for all of this mess? Well, unfortunately, that has to go to James Jones. Now, was James Jones pressured by the new ownership group to actually go out and get better quickly? Sure, he was. But should James Jones have said, we can get Kevin Durant or Bradley Beal, but we can't get both? Because if we get both, we are not going to have any number 1 draft picks or number 2 draft picks until the year, get this, 2031. Look, there are basketball players who are still in elementary who are probably going to be close to entering the NBA in the year 2031. That is how long the Phoenix Suns have to go and deal with completely empty cabinets. Now, how do you deal with completely empty cabinets as a general manager for the next 7 or 8 years? And the answer to that question, of course, is going to be through free agency. But you have no money left. You actually ended up hitting the NBA tax this year and had to pay $100 million plus in that. You're currently looking like next season, the Phoenix Suns are going to end up with a roster that's going to be somewhere north of $200 million, which means you're going to even pay a higher tax than you actually paid this year, James Jones. James Jones is absolutely responsible for the dumb moves that he made putting this particular team together. But maybe one of the most atrocious moves outside of the fact that they have no draft picks until 2031 is the fact that you thought, James Jones, it was okay to start an NBA season, a National Basketball Association season, James Jones, without a point guard. And then as the season went on and it was as clear as water is wet that you needed a point guard, you did not go out and get a point guard. And then at some point, with about 3 or 4 weeks to go in the season, you decided to pull a feel-good story and go out and get Isaiah Thomas Jr. and bring him onto the team so he could resurrect his career playing garbage minutes for your basketball team. Look, at the end of the day, James Jones made a horrific mistake, not just in the moves to bring in both Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, but to not actually have a floor general in place to actually deal with him. That right there was the big mistake that James Jones made. And of course, didn't go out and get another power forward, which was also something that this Phoenix Suns team desperately needed. Look, when you look at this roster and you look at guys like Devin Booker, and you look at guys like Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, they're all capable of scoring over 30 points a night. They're all capable occasionally of scoring over 40. Devin Booker's in the prime of his career at age 27, and we know that he's capable of scoring 50 a night every once in a while. Look, this was an absolute fiasco from the beginning. And what made it even worse was the false expectations that this Phoenix Suns general manager and his operations team had going into the playoffs, because we all know that the playoffs is a completely different thing than the regular season. I am not in any way surprised that the Minnesota Timberwolves ended up beating the Phoenix Suns in this series. I might have been one of the few people that thought that they would absolutely take down the Phoenix Suns in this series, despite the fact that they had lost 3 in a row. Now, I certainly didn't think they were going to actually sweep the Phoenix Suns, but when you actually go back and you watch the tape of the 4 games between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Phoenix Suns, it becomes clear there is a difference at general manager in Minnesota versus the general manager that's running the show in Phoenix today. All right, that is it for today's Underrated. Hey, tell me what you think. Listen, if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet, please go and subscribe. And of course, like this video. Do check out our big sports website at underrated.media. We've got a kick-ass newsletter that goes out every day. It's called, of course, The Daily. I know, super original. Check that out as well. For The Underrated, I am Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day. To the guitar riffs we go.